7 candidates hit the stage at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library with a singular goal tonight: show the American people why they're better suited for the job than frontrunner Donald Trump. The debate was contentious and heated at times, but did anyone have a breakout performance? Let's dive right into the conversation. Joining us now is Democratic strategist and founding partner of Northern Starr Strategies, Mychael Starr Hopkins, and Sarah Chamberlain. She's the president and CEO of Republican Main Street Partnership and founder of the Women to Women Conversations Tour. Sarah, Mychael, thank you both for joining us. I'm excited to dive into it. As I said, there was a lot of heated conversation there. There was some talk about policy. We're going to get into all the specifics, but Sarah, I'll start with you. Who do you think won the debate tonight and why?
I actually think Donald Trump won it. I mean, it's hard to touch him. Other than that, I think that Vivek did a very good job. I think that he showed that he is a front leader because everybody on the stage attacked him numerous times. So I think of this group, he will come out tomorrow as the winner of the debate.
Mychael, who do you think won and why?
So I actually think Nikki Haley had the best debate. She was consistent from the first debate, where I think she had a pretty good performance. And she's kind of playing the role that Chris Christie played in 2018, where he was kind of the assassin on stage. And he took people off to build up that strength. He just couldn't finish the job. I think here you're seeing Haley really look forward to the fight because Donald Trump is a fighter at the end of the day. And so going toe-to-toe with other candidates is only going to prepare her and make her stronger.
So we talk about the winners from the debate, but of course, former President Trump is the front runner in this current Republican primary. He's topped every poll out there. So the key question is even if they won the debate tonight, is it enough to chip away at former President Trump's lead? And Sarah, I want to go to you. I know you said Trump was a winner. I mean, he was mentioned a ton of times in this debate, but you also mentioned Vivek Ramaswamy, who took a lot of incoming and he dished it back to some others. Do you think his performance was enough to chip away at Trump's lead and potentially see a bump in the polls in the weeks to come?
I think it was enough to see a small bump, but I think what he's playing for is kind of the front leader if something happens to Trump with his criminal indictments. So I think this is a race for who's going to be second if Trump falls. I think he did a nice job. I think Vivek is the future of the Republican Party, whether it's this cycle or the cycle to come.
And Mychael, you mentioned Nikki Haley as the winner. A lot of folks said that she came out the strongest after the first debate, and she did see a bump in the polls. But still, former President Trump is high up there. He has double-digit leads in a lot of these polls. Do you think that Nikki Haley will continue to rise, and do you think it'll get her within any distance of former President Trump?
I think the big problem for Nikki Haley is Donald Trump actually won't go to trial until people have started voting. And so all these candidates kind of want to be the alternative. Well, people are going to have to make their choice before they get to the alternative. Nikki Haley is somebody I think Democrats should be wary of, but I think the person who Democrats are more wary of is actually Tim Scott, because he has a higher ceiling.
We see this conversation about wokeism, about transgenderism within the Republican Party. This seemed to take it up a notch. I'm curious how you think it'll play within the party.
It did take it up a notch, but it's the polling shows that Republican Main Street Partnership is doing, especially with our Women to Women. They like his comment. They don't want the children under 18 being able to have all these surgeries and all of this. So his comments actually match the polling that we've been doing. So I think he did a nice job. It is a mental health problem, and we need to address it as such.
And then, Mychael, I want to get you in here. You mentioned Tim Scott at the tail end of your answer beforehand. He was sort of in the background a bit at the first debate, but he had some more speaking time. This time he landed a couple blows. He got into a couple really notable back and forths with Nikki Haley. Do you think that he'll have any sort of breakout after tonight? And talk a little bit more what you mean by he's the one that Republicans should fear the most.
Well, Nikki Haley's more of a known commodity. Tim Scott, we don't really know a lot about his background. He hasn't been nationally introduced. And I think the comment that he made today about the Johnson administration and slavery not being as tough as it was during the Johnson administration, that's going to play really well in right-wing media. I think the Fox and Friends crowd that is very unapologetic or wants to push slavery and the Civil War off to the side, they're really going to feel good about that comment. And so I think much like Herschel Walker played well in Georgia, I think Tim Scott will play well nationally.
Now, those are the top lines from tonight's debate. But of course, the one notable aspect of tonight's debate was that the frontrunner, former President Trump, was not on the stage. And we have a poll that was just released by NewsNation and Decision Desk HQ, which shows that former President Trump's unfavorability topped 55% among registered voters. This news comes a day after a federal judge in New York ruled that Trump and his organization committed fraud to build his real estate empire. Earlier on Wednesday, Mr. Trump met with striking auto workers in Michigan. President Biden was there on Tuesday. Trump delivered a primetime speech in front of non-union auto parts supply workers near Detroit. We'll show some of that.
The only time Joe Biden has ever gotten his hands dirty is when he's taking cash from foreign countries, which is quite often. It's quite often. Based on what we're seeing, it's much more often than anyone would have thought. Can you imagine an unannounced raid on his many homes? He would have made Senator Menendez look like a baby. Just like a baby. You have an opponent and you say, let's indict him. And because people know me so well, we know each other very well, my ratings and my approval numbers went up. I'm the only person who ever got indicted while my numbers went up. It's so weird.
I mean, Sarah, is this strategy working for former President Trump? Will it continue to work for him if it is? This was the second primary debate. Of course, he didn't attend. He had his own counter-programming, that rally in Michigan. He still partially dominated the debate stage. You saw him talking a lot, being spoken a lot about on the stage. How do you think this strategy will work for him?
Actually, I think it works very well for him. He's out there. Whether you like Donald Trump or not, the base of the Republican Party is still behind him. It doesn't matter how many times he gets indicted. He's strong in the base. So for him not showing up on the stage, they can talk about him, as we talked about earlier, but they can't really attack him because he's not there. And he doesn't have to respond to these attacks. And I think it's a good strategy. He's up 40 points over most of the people on the stage. So why go? If I was advising him, I would tell him not to go to these debates either.
Mychael, would you agree with that? I mean, he is the front runner, and I guess you can make the argument that he has nothing to gain from being on this debate stage. But traditionally, the great part about a debate is that you can see all candidates, all side by side, hashing it out.
Yeah, I mean, 7 people we saw on that debate stage were a total joke at the end of the day. I would imagine something like 90% of Americans didn't even know there was a debate. And probably 95% of Americans couldn't even name the 7 people who were debating tonight. Trump's going to be the nominee, and that's going to be a big problem for Republicans because the base is going to support Trump, but independents aren't. And the more we talk about abortion, the more Trump gets indicted, the more he gets on stage and opens his mouth. He's not just creating a record for voters, but he's creating a record for prosecutors. And we saw when he did his interview with Caitlin from CNN, he literally got himself indicted by the comments he made. So if I was him, I would do as little debates as possible.
Sarah, you mentioned before that, we've seen poll after poll that even after these indictments, Trump's support is not dwindling. In fact, it's only growing. We've seen that in the numbers. And even, after the decision by the New York judge this week, I would ask, do you think that trend will continue? Do you still think that he will gain this support despite these increased legal troubles? And then I also want to ask you, going back to that poll, the NewsNation Decision Desk poll found that roughly 44% see Trump as very unfavorable. What do you think his campaign can do to turn this around?
Well, I think the people who find him unfavorable, I don't think there's anything Trump can do. I think it's going to come down to, okay, we don't like Trump, but Biden is an old man who may or may not be a bit senile. So what do we do? It's going to be a really tough choice. For Trump's base, I don't think it matters how many times he gets indicted and what happens in the legal system. They are with him. They have been with him since day one. They are sticking with him. I mean, he made the comment a couple years ago he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and he wouldn't lose his base. I think he could be right about that. They love him, and it's a new politics. You've never really seen this in the history of our country. It's someone who is just commands the primary electorate to the extent that he does. It's really fascinating to watch him.
Mychael, as you know, we get closer to the primaries and we move through the year and into early next year, we're going to start having some hearings for these prosecutions, these legal troubles that former President Trump is facing. Even in Georgia, there are going to be cameras in the courtroom. Do you think that Democrats are at all going to amp up their attacks on Trump having to do with these prosecutions these legal troubles, when we get closer to these hearing dates and we see it ramp up? And I would ask you, from the Democratic side, do you also think that it's really not going to chip away at former President Trump's support?
So I would advise every Democrat to literally respond to reporters by saying, have you asked Republicans what their stance is today? Because at the end of the day, Democrats should be quiet on this. Make Republicans defend this. The bad thing about Trump for Republicans isn't just that he's going to cost them the White House. It's what he's going to do down ticket. It's why I'm actually surprised that you think that Vivek had such a great night. The last debate, he said climate change wasn't real. This debate, he said that being transgender is a mental illness. Well, 30 years ago, we would call being gay a mental illness. That's not the future of the Republican Party.
He said in children, under 18. He was talking about the youth of this country. And
being a minor, I don't think is the difference between mental illness and not mental illness. But my broader point is Republicans need to bring people in to the fold, not push people out. And Trump is not winning independents. He's not winning college-educated women anymore. I don't know how he is going to manage in a general election to pull all those voters back in.
So, but what we're finding in ours is the women-to-women polling, they don't like either candidate. Like, we can talk about how bad Trump is and his indictments, but look what's going on with Biden's family. Look what's going on with the senator from New Jersey. I mean, neither side is free of very questionable activities. And I think that helps the Republicans, like, okay, what side do we go with here? And I think it's going to be a tough choice next year if it is Biden and if it is Trump.